Alabama has got their next head coach. Kalen DeBoer from Washington is set to be the next guy for the Crimson Tide. Alabama fans, how do you feel about this? Because for me, I see multiple facets of this hire for the Crimson Tide. I see a lot of pros. I also see some reasons why you would have some reservations. Make sure you subscribe right here to the On3 YouTube channel. If you're just now finding us, welcome. We talk college football every single day. Want y'all a part of this? Get at me on Twitter and Instagram at JD Pickell. Let me know how you feel about this hire. Because to be real, man, I see the logic. Like if I'm Greg Byrne, I went and hired someone who has won everywhere that he has been. From the NIL level all the way up, NIA level. Hopefully they win in the NIL level too, all the way up. 104-12 as a head coach, 25-3 as a P5 coach at Washington. Took the Huskies to the national championship this year, beating teams like Texas on their way to doing that, beating a good team like Oregon, who I think was one of the best teams in the country, not once, but twice. The way that he has attacked the portal really effectively, grabbing a guy like Michael Penix Jr., grabbing a guy like Dylan Johnson. So you see the roster acquisition side of things there kind of paying off via the portal. Strong culture guy. And this is tough to quantify, but anyone who's watched Washington play this season, and we got to see him up close and personal in that national title game in Houston, they play for Kalen DeBoer, man. Like there is a ton of buy-in, and you don't buy into a way a team does things unless you buy into your head coach. And so the fact that they won as many close games as they did this year, 8 to be exact by 1 score, like they play for Kalen DeBoer. So the culture and the just grit I think Alabama's going to have under Kalen DeBoer, I think that's in place. That's got to be super exciting. Also, he's only 49 years old. Like this could very well be a long-term hire for Alabama. I don't think you brought Kalen DeBoer in to be some kind of stopgap for a couple of years. I think you want to keep Kalen DeBoer around as long as possible, as long as he's winning football games for you. Also, offensive savant. His offenses at Washington in the 2 years he was there, 38 points a game on average. That'll get it done. That'll check the box. So for me, if I'm Alabama, the way that I see this, we are buying stock earlier in a guy who we think is going to be a superstar in this sport. Because to be clear, this is his first Power 5 head coaching job at Washington. Only had it for 2 years. Knocked it out of the freaking park. Like I already told you, has won multiple NAIA titles. But at the exact same time, we're buying the stock early. We're getting our guy, and we're going to feel great about the direction it's headed under him. So that's one way to look at it. And I want to make sure I preface this next part of our segment by saying, one, Greg Byrne has a lot more on his plate, a lot more information when it comes to making this hire than we do. He makes a lot more money to make these decisions than we do. And he sat down and had these conversations with a Kalen DeBoer, and I'm sure Nick Saban was a very large part in making this hire as well. So with those caveats and those prefaces in front of us, I have some what I would call healthy reservations about this hire. And the reason why I feel that way is if you're Alabama, I think you could have gone in a safer direction. Now, could have is sort of a relative term because we don't know who would or wouldn't have taken it. I think this is a safer hire relative to a Lane Kiffin or a Deion Sanders and so on and so forth. But when you look at the guys who maybe you were swinging at early on, a Steve Sarkisian, a Mike Norvell, a Dan Lanning, if he was ever really on the table for Alabama, those would be guys that for me, I would have felt like I have more confidence in their track record and what they've done at their different stops and the way they've built those programs than anyone Kalen DeBoer. And that is not to speak negative of Kalen DeBoer. For me, the issue is the SEC is just its own beast, and recruiting is its own beast. And as successful as Kalen DeBoer has been getting some key guys through the portal, Alabama has been a mainstay in college football because of how they've recruited in that top 3, it feels like every single year. Not in the top 10, in the top 3. If I'm Kalen DeBoer, I'm not saying he can't do that. It'll be easier to do that at a place like Alabama, but it'll be a little bit new for him to recruit at that level. Not saying he can't do it. I'm saying I haven't seen him do it yet. So for that reason, I have a little bit of hesitation. And he could be a smashing success at Alabama, but I think it's not unfair for us to sort of talk this out right now as to how he fits for the Crimson Tide. To put it simply, when you're taking over the Ferrari that this Alabama football program is, the resources, the roster full of nothing but top 2 classes, the pressure, the spotlight, being in the SEC, all of that, I would have probably appreciated having somebody that had driven a Ferrari before, had a similar spotlight, a similar pressure and expectations. And that's not speaking ill of Washington. That's just kind of telling it how it is. Alabama is its own beast. So, I also want to make sure we say this. If Washington were to lose their lead against Oregon in that Pac-12 championship and Bo Nix and co. find a way to storm back and Washington doesn't win the Pac-12. Again, it was a one-score game. If they don't win that one, or take it a step further, they get to the college football playoff and Adonai Mitchell comes down with that catch on the last play of the game in New Orleans and Washington doesn't play for the national championship. Are we still talking about Kalen DeBoer being the next head coach at Alabama? Because for me, it feels like this is a little bit reactionary. The issue for me is the sample size is so small on Kalen DeBoer as a Power 5 head coach, and then we're throwing the keys to the most attractive job in the country right now. Again, not saying he can't do it. I'm saying based on this past year's success, are we putting too much stock into that one season? Again, if you're Greg Byrne, you're buying the stock early, you feel great about your guy going forward and feel like you probably got a rising star in the sport. So I'm not telling you he can't be great. I'm telling you the reservations that I have about him being the next head coach at Alabama, I think those are something that we'll get answers for, something that we'll see play out. Far be it for me to tell you he can't crush it at Alabama, but those are just some things I'm curious to see. But again, won everywhere that he's been. His offenses score points in bunches. He's done a great job utilizing key guys through the portal. Now we get to see what happens as we move into the DeBoer era in Tuscaloosa. Again, let me know here. How do y'all feel about Kalen DeBoer being the next head coach at Alabama? I think it's good, but I have some of my own reservations as to how he fits long-term. Some things we just haven't seen him do yet, but I promise you, we will get to see it very, very soon. Make sure you're subscribed. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. Going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.